What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the ending to Lost Records Tape 1. I figured I would do it in this kind of spoiler cast-like video, kind of talk about it, just talk about my, impressions, what I feel. We'll talk a little bit about where Tape 2 could be going, but I do want to do an entirely separate video on at least things that I want Tape 2 to nail and, kind of prepping ourselves for that. Well, luckily, we got 2 months to wait, so let's just talk about Tape 1, how it ends, and I will say, if you watch the review, it does build up. It takes, in my opinion, a little too long to build up, but the ending of this this first half, I want to say the ending of this game, I might sneak that in, throughout this video. I would say pretty impactful for also being what it is, and I'm not trying to discount, by the way, spoilers, starting immediately, okay? I'm not trying to discount leukemia or say, oh, it's no biggie. You would think, right, going into a game like this or going into, Don't Nod games, you think Life is Strange and stuff. What I actually think they do such a good job in, and I will praise Lost Records for doing this, you might think, most of these games have these big spectacles, right, and it's about this larger-than-life stuff. And that's here. We got to talk about the abyss and these kind of wishes that these girls are doing. But then what happens to Kat at the very end, right? With leukemia, passing out, all that jazz, it's very real. It's very grounded, and it's shocking without being, and again, I'm not trying to discount leukemia, it's shocking without being that really big thing, but it is, right? It's a real grounded thing. You might have experienced this in your life. You might know somebody that has experienced it, whatever it might be. It's something that's pretty touching, right? It's something that has been around. It's something that's a little bit more grounded than, and I'm not saying, I like the tornado, I like the storm, obviously in Life is Strange, it's iconic forever, but, it's not this big catastrophe, and as you're going throughout the game, I will say the game actually kind of sets it up to be a little bit more supernatural, right? And you think, okay, there's going to be a twist, there's going to be something there has to be, because you have to also kind of sell the next part of the game, even though you buy it just as one package. You gotta be able to give us that one more thing, right, where now we're at the edge of our seat, and now we're saying, okay, where does this lead for the next part? To be fair to the game, and it's something that I was kind of hinting at in the review, this is actually where I do think they did well. Again, I think it took a bit too long. I think the focus of Tape 1 was kind of not exactly where it needed to be, but generally how it ended, you have these 4 girls that have really, I would say, naturally formed this bond, right? So they're together. Then you start to introduce this supernatural thing, and that happens right before, right? Now, that would be one of my issues. It kind of takes a little too long for the wishes and all that kind of stuff to happen. But, you get to that point, and we'll talk about that in a second, and then you get to the very end where, okay, now you're in the present, or, 2022, or whatever you want to say, and, we have the 3 girls. And it's interesting because when Swan and Autumn were talking throughout most of this tape, they always kind of refer to okay, well, wait until they come, or wait until she comes. I don't know if they ever reference Kat being alive. So when they're talking about, we have to wait for the whole group, I don't know if Kat survives this. And here's the thing, okay? If Kat does survive it, because of the abyss and because of what I feel like they're going to start to do in the beginning of Tape 2, now it actually adds a new wrinkle to the future. So let's talk a little bit about that too. So number one, just that ending and Kat collapsing and stuff. Again, I think really well done and just in a more grounded and, I don't know, kind of coming out of left field. I didn't see that coming personally. You could sense that there was something up, but I didn't know if it was health related or just who her dad was, right? Because you had Corey and stuff always kind of watching out for her. I don't hate him as much as I think they're trying to make these characters hate him. In fact, if you watch some of the clips, that I might be showing, or just my in general playthrough, specifically when the girls really go after him, I was defensive. I mean, I stood up for Swan, I stood up for the girls, but when they were attacking him and then their eyes would light up and then he would get injured from that for some reason, I was okay, let's hold back, because he literally is labeled a bully in the game, when Swan takes the video of him. I'm not saying he's this perfect, amazing guy, but I think there's more to him. And I think, the game, I think, really wants you to kind of hate him. He's clearly watching for Kat at the, the direction of her dad. So clearly there's something going on with her. And it's discounted, with the girls, right? Oh, she doesn't need your protection. She doesn't need you to kind of watch out for her. Well, maybe she kind of does, right? Especially if she has that. I can understand why the dad would want to keep a close eye on her. So that kind of adds a new wrinkle to that one where, again, he's not the greatest guy. I'm not saying that, but does he deserve to, I'm kind of worried eventually these wishes are going to lead to him dying, because you already got a very aggressive scene between the girls and him, and you already have a very vengeful, at least Nora and Kat, right? The other two, Autumn and Swan, are not so much into it, and specifically as I was playing as Swan, I try to stay as far away from that stuff as possible. I just didn't want to get into it. I also felt she wouldn't really want to cut and draw blood for a blood ceremony, so I didn't do any of that. But it's very clear that they're not all like that. Some of them are pretty vindictive and they're gonna go after revenge, and so I do wonder now going forward, what does that mean? When it comes to this abyss, I do just wonder where it's going. Dylan and Corey are characters that I wonder about because you don't, again, the mentions of Kat are slim to none in terms of the present time, and it's specifically her relatives, people around, siblings, right, people around her are, I believe, not mentioned at all. Also, we have to still figure out what exactly happened, and that again, I would say that's more of a weakness with tape 1, where it's such a slow build that we haven't even gotten there yet. We're definitely at the supernatural part, but we're not to the part where they are going to do something that they probably wish that they didn't do, and then they literally go from, oh, we're gonna be best friends forever, we're never gonna not be together, to, I believe their thing was, they swore to each other they would never see each other again. They never talk to each other. They would go their own ways, and that's it. How you go from the one extreme to the, I mean, okay, look, when you're growing up, kids do say that, so maybe it's not as extreme, but you go from the one to the other, right? So we still don't know what that actual jump was, and it obviously, I think, has to be connected, in my opinion, to Kat. It has to be connected to the Abyss, so some sort of risk-reward or give and take, right? So they have to give something. See, I feel like somebody's going to get pushed down there. I feel like just, you have this big hole in the ground. I feel like somebody's going to fall in, and I mean that as in a sacrifice. So I imagine it's going to get to a point where either Corey or Dylan or both or one, whatever, is going to be sacrificed. They'll be pushed into it or something in return for Kat surviving leukemia or something. And there's always a chance of it backfiring. So that's kind of where I'm 50-50. Is Kat still alive? And there's got to be repercussions no matter what, right? In fact, to be honest with you, it's very reminiscent, now that I think about it, which is actually kind of ironic, to Life is Strange 1. I mean, Nora and Chloe are very closely related, I would say, in terms of looks and attitude and things like that. But what about the idea of saving one versus the other, right? You pick one over the other. I mean, that's a common thing in these type of games in general, but literally it could mirror it to some degree, Life is Strange to Lost Records. So I don't know, could they do something where you basically save one, but you have to literally take, because you imagine something as big as life and death, you have to take one to get the other, right? It's not something where, oh, I throw a marble, which I gotta be honest, I found that to be kind of stupid. They sacrificed, they gave literally things they found on the side of the road, things that had no meaning, at least as far as I know. Maybe you guys saw it in a different way. They throw these things. I mean, look, what they get in return is also not that big, but maybe that's the thing, right? If they give something kind of meaningless, they get something kind of meaningless, some sort of a wish granted. If you want the big one, if you want to save yourself from death, you're gonna have to do something even bigger. So, and that would take, maybe taking a life. So I think there absolutely is potential. I think, in that way, as I keep saying, this is where the game probably was at its strongest, was towards the end, the last 30 minutes. Look, it got weird. It got, honestly, I would say uncomfortable. And I think, I said this in the review, I think they did a good job with Swan. And I think, playing as her and kind of choosing, she is her own character, but then you kind of, you get your little input as well, right? So what she would do in certain situations. I really liked how like that just worked together. But as it gets later and later, things get weirder, and it just gets darker. Like when she's walking in the forest and she sees Kat and she's like clearly out of it. See, there's like that thing too. I feel like in terms of like this blood ritual that her and Nora kind of started, I think she was the first one to do it. Something's clearly up with her in particular. Whether she's more into it than the other girls, or whether this like entity thing has kind of latched itself onto her. There's something up specifically with Kat, and that's ironic that she's the one with the disease, right? So again, this is where it shined. This is where, when they're talking and they're like at the edge of this like hole, I was like, is she gonna throw Swan in, or like, just the way she's talking and kind of like a possessed type feel. I think they did very, very good there. And so from that point on, which is literally, I would say, kind of like the ending of the game, I think they did really good. As I keep saying, we'll see how it lands, with Tape 2. In my opinion, there's a lot of work you still have to do with Tape 2 to kind of bring everything together. Now you have your twist. Now you have kind of elevated stakes, and then you already have the foundation. You already had, okay, there's this entity portal like, thing, presence, and it's capable of doing XYZ, but you have to do XYZ. Okay, now you have like a wrinkle with one of your characters. You also, you introduced us to the present day versions of 3 of them, but not the 4th. Now, that doesn't mean she's not alive, but again, if she is alive, does that have to do with the box? Who's that box from, by the way? And originally, I kind of thought Dylan or Corey. That was my just first, like, once I guess we got to know the characters a little bit, because it's got to be from a character back in that era. I guess it could be from Kat. I guess literally it could be she maybe took one of them out. She killed somebody, right, to save herself. And because of that, they really turned these other girls off. They promised they would never do this. They promised they would never speak of it. So they all kind of, parted ways. But then with whatever this entity thing is happening, right, clearly messes with their memory, and they almost have to talk their way through it almost 30 years later. It's odd that by the way, they need to talk themselves through it, and they can't just remember. Like, they didn't remember at any point in those 27 years until they sat down with each other. I guess it's fair because, like, maybe seeing each other kind of brings it back. But whatever, right? You have things that are going down. You have a missing character. You have the box, and you got to figure out, kind of the missing pieces, right? How all this stuff kind of fits together. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.